Okay. So just like before when we do this, hey, listen please. Okay, when we do this, okay, I will stop in between each question and just explain it. Okay, so is everybody logged in? All right, here we go. Okay, shh. Okay. Hey, remember, hey, in between each one, okay, hey, we can just plan that I'm going to talk in between each one. Okay, so that means you'll be quiet. So here, the S is the phoneme, and then if I add the S to the end, why is it a morpheme? Yeah, because it adds that meaning of making it plural. Really? That person can log back in.
They were winning though. I win.
Okay, so here, that's kind of hard to see. Okay, that's still not really working. That's okay. Okay, so overgeneralization is when you misapply the grammatical rule. So here, instead of saying he won, he said I winned.
I'm in. Guys, everyone's this place.
Good. Okay, so let's review this. Okay, 10 of you chose echoic memory. Echoic memory is a type of sensory memory, okay, that is going to be for auditory information. So that's the example that we had talked about when if I were saying something and you were spaced out and then I asked you a question, okay, you would be able to answer it because your echoic memory stored it. Okay, so this is number 76. Okay, so when we look at the normal distribution and we look at IQ, so one distribution would be 85 and to 115. Okay, that's 68% of the population. What percentage falls within two deviations? 95. Okay, so that one's just a distractor. Okay, and then the three deviations is 99.7. Okay, so that's what we're looking at with that. What percentage of the population falls above the mean? 50. Okay, so functional fixedness. Okay, shh. Okay, functional fixedness is when we think an object can only be used what it's intended for. So in this case, a stapler is only used to staple papers. It can't be used as a paperweight too. So the convergent thinking, that's what we talked about with creativity, and you go from many facts to one solution. So like a multiple choice test or a math question. Hello, Mrs. Severson. Yes. Yes, but we're doing an 8:00. Do they have to come? Okay, I'll probably be the end of the day. Okay, sounds good. Okay, you bet. Bye. Is Lila here? Lila and Nolan. You don't have to leave now, but you have to go to guidance after. Ew. Okay. So everybody go to, this is number 19. Okay. So long-term potentiation is actual physical change in your brain. Okay. And this is a result, it increases the likelihood that the neuron will fire. So I had drawn a picture, okay, or shown a picture of long-term potentiation with, let's say, in before learning, there's only 3 receptor sites. After a week of learning, there's 5 receptor sites. So now that means that there's more chance of it firing because there's more receptor sites. So that's what we're looking at with long-term potentiation. The relatively permanent and limitless storehouse of the memory system, what would that be? That's long-term memory. This is asking long-term potentiation. Good. Okay, so with recall, this is number, let's see here. Where is it? Thank you. Okay, this is number 20. So recall is harder than recognition. Okay, because recall you have to, you don't have as many retrieval cues. It's just kind of coming from your memory, where recognition, you could have like a word bank, or recognition for the mugging would be looking at the person's pictures, okay, and choosing which one they would be. Okay, so anything that is, okay, anything that's your conscious awareness. Okay, so here, Tim is thinking about competing in a swim meet. That's what he's consciously aware of during that time. And he's thinking about that in his working memory. Okay, the working memory is kind of the active processing in the short-term memory. Okay, so they both have limited capacity and duration, but the working memory is more retention of information as well as doing something with the information. Okay, it's not as sensory, okay, because he's consciously aware of it. The cerebellum would actually be more of our procedural memory, okay, or implicit memory. So that's where things like him actually swimming would be the cerebellum. So here, oh, that one's not even finished. So that's fine. Okay. What this is looking at is Worf is saying that our language, okay, is going to influence how we think. Because if we have a word for it, then it causes us to think differently, which then changes our perception of the world. Whoops. Yes, it's getting information into memory. Sorry about that. Yep.
Oh. I'm scared.
Okay. So, aptitude. Okay, this is number 72. An achievement test would be he's gone through a course on how to be a mechanic and then he takes the test, okay, to show what he's learned. Here it's saying the capacity to learn. That's aptitude. So it's meant to predict how he would do in the future. Okay, so again, that's what aptitude would be. Yeah, showing your capacity for learning to be a mechanic would be the aptitude. Good. Okay. Let's review these other ones. Okay. What's the serial position effect is when you remember things at the beginning and the end of the list. So you tend to forget what's in the middle. Proactive interference, we practice this. This would be that old information is working forward to block new information. And then state-dependent memory would be whatever their state of mind is, okay, at that time. So that one doesn't really relate here. So what he's trying to do is by asking misleading questions, okay, we can start to add that information into our own memory, okay, and then we remember it differently based on the question because we can't remember if it was attributed to the question or something that actually happened. Okay, so here, I know we did the 3 letters together, okay? I know we did the 3 letters together, but what this is looking at, he did not put the 3 letters together. He would have tried to remember the nonsense syllables like F-U-B, not as FUB. Okay, so that is not the correct answer. It's about rehearsal. Okay, so he was rehearsing those, okay, memorizing them without using mnemonics, okay, and then he utilized that rehearsal over several days, which turns into the spacing effect. Okay. So this isn't, okay. First, echoic memory. Echoic memory is auditory. So think that you hear echoes. Okay, you hear an echo. Okay, this is iconic because you see icons and you're looking at these for only a fraction of a second to demonstrate that you had it. Now, implicit memory is a type of long-term memory. Okay, so this is sensory memory. Implicit is compared to explicit. Okay, so let's talk about what implicit is. This is number 7. Implicit is our procedural memory. Okay, so what this would be, examples would be really any action that you do, and it requires very little conscious awareness. So walking, writing, reading, riding a bike, okay, those are all going to be examples of implicit memory. Explicit memory requires more, okay, of your conscious awareness. Okay, so I know that if I ask you a question on the test, okay, that you know or you're consciously aware of what that question is and having to kind of fill in the information from it. Okay, and what I mean by that, I ask you a question, you're retrieving a fact, which is a type of semantic, which is explicit memory. Or numerals, it should say. Why? Good. Okay. Are there questions on this? This is on your FRQ. Okay. Shh. Okay. The encoding failure is on your FRQ. Are there any questions on this? Well, it's just when you're not paying. Basically, what forgetting is from sensory to short-term memory is you don't pay attention to it, so it's forgotten. Anytime you encode something, you pay attention to it, so it gets encoded. So that's really what you're looking at here. Right. Good. Okay. Working memory is actually in short term. Okay. And working memory would be limited capacity and limited duration. Okay. So that's what working/short term would be. Okay. This is an algorithm. I want you to picture how this is worded here. Okay, that somebody would start out with like putting it all in out like BDIR. That didn't work. So now I'm going to do BDRE. Then I'm going to do DBRI. Sorry, there's no E in there. Okay. And I'd unscramble until I eventually get to bird. I'm not using a problem-solving strategy, which would be a heuristic. Here they're using an algorithm. They're trying every possible way to get to the solution. Okay. So remember our mnemonic here. Okay. If a hippo is on campus, he has some explaining to do. Hippocampus explicit. Okay. If a hippo is on campus, he has some explaining to do. Sarah the ballerina, cerebellum, is impressive, implicit memory. Okay, so that's how we'll remember the difference there. Motor cortex has nothing to do with memory. Okay, neither does the hypothalamus. Memory isn't one of the 5 F's. It doesn't start with an F.
What? What? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay. All right. So here's something. I'm glad I did this one. Okay, I thought this one would have been. It's okay. So babbling isn't actual words. Okay, that's the first stage. Babbling is making sound. So ba 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 ma da da, and just kind of making these random noises. The one word stage. Okay. The one word stage. Do you mind shutting? Is there noise coming from outside? No. Thanks. Do you mind shutting that door, Claire? Okay. Oh wait. Okay. The one word stage is that one word means something. So Julie says "wada" whenever she wants a drink of water. Okay. So that instead of saying "Hey, I want a drink of water," she just says "wada." That's one word. Okay. So not babbling. Babbling is not words. It's just making sounds. Good. Okay, so prototype. Okay, so here, this would be an example then too of that we could also address representativeness heuristic. Okay, so if I had to make an assessment between a man and a woman being a nurse, and a woman better matches my prototype, okay, I am going to use the representative heuristic to say the woman's the nurse. Okay, so that would be an example of those, because I know the representativeness and availability are kind of a confusing pair. So again, how closely do they represent their prototype for that individual? That leads to representativeness.
Charlie, why'd you say it out? Let's go. Let's go. Don't say it out loud, Charlie. Don't say it out loud. Don't say it out loud. You do be spitting facts, but you do be
Okay. This one you have longer than 20 seconds. Just kidding, you don't. Thought I gave it to you.
Let's go on.
Sorry, I thought I gave you longer. Okay, so let's go over this. Okay, so we have the creative, analytical, and practical. Okay, so completing a road test, I'm not exactly sure where that would fall. I guess practical probably, but here solving complicated mathematical problems is definitely analytical. We're thinking more school and academic. A business executive who effectively motivates, that's going to be what? Practical. Okay, and a woman who refuses to pay taxes because they're used to make weapons, that's more of a moral question. I guess maybe practical. This one you have 60 seconds, so you have time to write it out if you need to.
That's scary.
Oh no, I put the wrong one.
Okay, so here, okay, what we have, okay, and this is why I gave you time so you can write it out. Well, yeah, okay. So you have the, what was it, the bike lock?
Yeah, and then the school lock.
Okay, so which one here is he having trouble remembering?
Bike lock.
Okay, so which one is he remembering?
School lock.
The school lock. Okay, so this means the answer is retroactive because you circled it. Okay, why is it called retro if we're thinking old and we're remembering the new? Because retro works backwards to block the old. Okay, so I would physically write this out, cross, circle, all that stuff. Good, the G factor. Spearman, hey, listen, Spearman did not create IQ, okay, that would be Binet or Terman, okay, so he created the general intelligence. Good. All right, let's go over this one. Okay, so aptitude testing. Okay, aptitude testing really isn't relevant here. Factor analysis we didn't talk about in this unit. I'm saving that for personality. Okay, but what it is, okay, factor analysis, what it is specific questions have to do with the factor. So when you took your multiple intelligence test, you probably realized that these questions had to do with naturalistic, these questions had to do with logical or linguistic. That would be factor analysis. Now, it is not the Flynn effect, okay? The Flynn effect is a rising IQ score over time. Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with self-fulfilling expectations. We talked about the Flynn effect occurring because of more schooling and testing, as well as less biased tests. The stereotype threat is something that can happen on tests, okay, when people are reminded of their race or gender, okay, that they could start living up, like they think this is a stereotype about them, so then they kind of meet those expectations, but it's self-fulfilling. Okay, so let's explain why this is representativeness. Your prototype for a basketball player is what? That they're tall. Okay, so here they're making a judgment that he must play basketball because he's tall. That's representativeness. Okay. So a flashbulb memory, okay, a flashbulb memory is something that's automatically encoded into long term. It kind of bypasses the sensory and all that. Okay, so again, the flashbulb memory automatically goes in. Now, we talked about generational ones, but it could be something that just happens to you. Okay, that could also be a flashbulb memory. Repressed memory is actually the opposite. It's something you can't remember at all. Okay, and procedural would be that skill again, like writing, reading, things like that. Okay. Now, to remember these, okay, validity is going to be when it actually measures what it says it's measuring. Okay, so here for an aptitude test, if it predicts how you're going to do in college, does it actually predict how you're going to do in college? Okay, that would be validity. Reliability would be consistency. Okay, so every single time I take the test, am I getting similar results? Okay, and if so, then it would have reliability. So Noam Chomsky, okay, there are a lot of names in this unit, okay, and Chomsky created the theory of this inborn universal grammar. And what this is that our brain is wired to not only learn but produce language. Okay, so kids will start mimicking what they hear, but they're able to take it and apply it to their own context. So they may have never heard somebody say the big green truck before, okay, but they've heard people put adjectives in front of nouns. So they figure out that that's what they should do, that big and green are adjective, okay, and they kind of have this grammar and figure it out in their head. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. This is a very biological explanation for language. Good. Okay, let's take a look at the green one, the belief perseverance. Belief perseverance is you maintain something even though contradictory evidence has been shown, okay, to you. So that's the example that we had talked about with the Iranian leader and the Holocaust in 9/11 that we had watched. I gave you longer on this one, too, to calculate IQ. Good. Okay, so one thing, okay, when we do this, okay, this is basically the 9-year-old, okay, is the mental age, okay, so the proficiency typical of an average 9-year-old, that's what mental age means, okay, and then the 12-year-old, so you put 9 over 12, okay, and then 9 divided by 12 is 0.75 equals, times 100 is 75. So this IQ, check your answer. If their mental age is lower than their chronological age, their IQ is going to be lower than 100. Yes?
If we have any of these in the test, would it be easier to calculate?
Yeah, like this one. It's 9 divided by 12. Yeah. Nope, it'll be like this. You might have to do some long division and like carry over. Okay. Yeah, you're not allowed to use calculator on the test. Good. So we talked about, okay, this goes with number 10. We've talked a lot about the spacing effect and testing effect. So the testing effect, okay, the testing effect is actually when we do repeated testing, we're practicing that retrieval, okay, and that will increase chances that it'll be recalled. The others here, okay, are not related to the testing effect. So the testing effect, think like your quizzes practice. Your practice getting that information out. Good. So a couple different ways to remember this. Okay, Broca's beaks, okay, or Broca is like boca, which is mouth in Spanish. Okay, and Wernicke's whistle. So here's the thing. When we look at our FRQ, okay, you have to make sure that when, and I try to emphasize this in class, okay, that Broca's area helps to produce language, but what is it? It's a part in our brain, right? Okay, so it's a part of our brain that helps to produce language. So make sure that you are acknowledging that it's a structure in the brain. Yes, availability. Okay, here's why. Okay, availability is going to stand out more because you're seeing the news report, so that easily stands out in your mind, so you make a judgment that crime's increasing. Okay, so this is what researchers associated with memory construction. We read an article with her. Elizabeth. Yes. Okay. I'll wait till everyone's listening. Okay. So Elizabeth Loftus is looking at memory construction, false memories, misinformation effect. So what happens here when our memory, okay, our biases, prior experiences are going to influence how that memory is retrieved. So we had looked at the presupposition of words, okay, in those experiments. We looked at our personal bias when we did that airplane example, and people said, like, everyone called the hijacker a he, okay, even though I didn't say that. So that's a personal bias as an example. Good. Ignore the A. Okay, it's valid. Okay, so when you guys see something like it actually measures how much oil there is, like actually measures, that's going to be valid. Okay, what I'd like to do now, okay, we have a few minutes. Okay, so if you don't want to listen, that's fine, just be silent. Okay, those of you who have questions, though, does anybody want me to review anything, provide further examples on any terms? Yes? Okay, so G factor goes with Spearman's theory, and it's just our general level of intelligence. So I had said our G factor, let's say we kind of have just this general intelligence, which might be measured with it's mostly measured through traditional IQ testing. Okay, we have a general intelligence of around 100. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit better at math than I am English, so those would be specific factors that he would have talked about, but it's just it's the most traditional view of intelligence. Other questions? So here's what, okay? You have lots of practice opportunities, okay? So obviously you have Quizlet, but remember Quizlet shouldn't be our main go-to, okay? Yes, use it. Definitely look at it with the terms that you're confused on, okay? But we have quizzes, okay? There's the AP practice exam that I put in the cognitive psych folder, and then you have all your module reviews. So you have your module reviews, plus you have more unit reviews at the end of each unit, okay? So you have an additional, just there, probably 80 questions that you could be taking to help you and make sure you know what you know. Okay, so that's what I would do. Take a look at the FRQ. We are meeting in here. Okay, we have about 5 to 6 minutes, so let's just hang tight. Let's not line up at the door until like 21.
I set up for release time.
No.